Hey, everybody, welcome to a quick tips for founders episode that we're doing this time with Charlie Wells. He's the founder and CEO of HelloSelf, studied neurobiology at Oxford, moved to London, got involved in healthcare marketing, worked for Rory Sutherland. If you are aware of that guy, you may have seen his clips all over social media. Had a life-threatening brain hemorrhage in 2011, completely changed everything he was doing in his life. Now, as I say, the founder and CEO of HelloSelf, helping people feel better, faster, stay better, longer. Loads of awesome stuff if you want to hear that entire journey and everything that Charlie has been through to get to this point. You can listen to the previous episode to this. But for now, we're going to hear about his quick tips for founders. So Charlie, welcome back. Give us your tips, sir.
Thanks for having me, James. So I get asked this question a lot, right? As in, I've been a 3-time founder, I guess, and I've run companies as well as started them. But I actually think there's a lot of kind of truths to whether you're a CEO or a founder or a senior leader in an organization. So I've got my 5 big tips on like how to be a good leader. So the first one is like fall in love with problems, not with your solution. So too many people are saying, this is our solution. I need it to work. I need it to work. Like, too many founders like, I've invented this thing. It's amazing. I need it to work. Too many CEOs again, this is my company. I need this to work. And they don't say, this is my customer's problem and this is how I can solve it. And I've fallen in love with the problem of self-improvement. That problem will never go away, right? Whereas, is my answer to self-improvement the right one? Maybe not. And it's very heartbreaking for a company to admit that their solution maybe is not the best solution. It's not heartbreaking at all if you're constantly trying to work out what's the best way to solve the problem. So tip number 1, fall in love with problems, not solutions. Tip number 2 is don't die. So all founders out there, like too many people sail too close to the wind. And so they like to spend money thinking it will be okay. Like you have an odd job as a CEO, as a co-founder, which you have to be the most confident person in the room that you're 100% going to succeed. And at the same time, you need to be the least confident person in the room that you're going to succeed. And no one else can see that, right? So you have to have your don't die plan at all time. So many companies make it because they didn't die, not because they were the best, because you need to be there for your right moment. That's my second one. Third one, and this is probably sort of less popular, but I believe in the power of small groups of people. Like if you can find a few people which share a single mission. Quite often we build companies where we say we want to have lots of people and we're going to work on lots of stuff because we're really busy. Actually, if you can have a few people all united around a single mission, you can change the world. And so there's lots of kind of rules about like, can you get more done? Like if you have enormously high expectations of how much you can deliver, like, and always stretch yourself, but try and keep small groups of non-specialist people, but who are brilliant, but united around a single mission, you can achieve an enormous amount with a relatively small amount of resource. And we forget that in kind of corporate world, because as soon as we start trying to be corporate, we kind of create friction. Number 4, and this is a personal one, like being a leader and a founder is really, really hard. And ultimately, you only really need, you're probably making thousands of decisions every hour, but probably only 1 or 2 of them a day really matter. The rest of it, you should be trying to let other people make. And so how do you know you're making the right choice? Because if it's on your desk, it's probably not an easy answer because someone else would have made the call. So it gets to your desk, you have to work out how do you maximize your choices. And then it's really good to understand your values. But because if you should be making choices by maximizing your impact on whatever you care most about, and also minimizing regret. So Bezos often talks about like with really difficult decisions, he spends some time thinking about like which of these, if I make this choice, am I going to feel the least amount of regret from making that call? And I love balancing it. Every day I think like, if I make this choice or this choice, which am I going to regret the most? And then which of these choices is going to deliver the most maximum outcome? It frequently means you don't make the easy decision, but you probably make the right one. And then last but not least, number 5, it's a really hard and lonely job. If you're a founder, everything is your fault. And you have told everyone in the company, give up your lives, your jobs, your dreams, your free time, your relationships, and come and follow me on my mission. And It doesn't matter how many people you have in your team. It doesn't matter how close you are to your colleagues. You're on your own as a founder or co-founder. You've got someone else with you. And so it's really hard and it's really lonely. And so you need to make sure that you have everything in place, right? You need to make sure you have your own systems. You need to understand yourself well. You need to understand how you behave in stressed environments. You need to recognize what mind state you're in when you're interacting with other people, because it will affect your decisions. It will affect how they make decisions around you. So you really need to understand yourself well, and you need to build the systems and people around you to make sure that you are bringing your best decision self to every conversation. So the things I've had to learn is I've had to learn like how to recognize different behavioral traits in myself. I've had to learn to recognize those and then effectively leave them at the door when I start the next conversation. Even harder in a remote world where we're kind of every minute we're shifting into a different meeting. Therapists are very good at it, strangely, because obviously they finish a session, they start another session. And then you have to make sure you're building your systems around yourself, whether that's what you do for yourself, what you do with the relationships that matter for you, whether what you're doing from exercise, whatever they end up being. You need to know what makes you great at being you. And then you need to prioritize those things. Even if it feels like you should be working, you are working if you're making good decisions.
I absolutely love that last one. It's so relatable because I feel exactly the same, that I need to know the formula that makes me my best self in order to perform well every day, because I've seen what happens in both directions. I've seen what happens when I do optimize my life so that I am well rested and well exercised and well fed and well watered and all these things, and well socially interacted. And I've sort of got to a point where I know the optimal for those things, that I can then deal with the stress so much easier. And there's like a canary in the coal mine for me. And I referenced it earlier in jest, but if I start getting really angry when I'm playing tennis, doing something that I love, like I can lose a match 6-1, 6-2 and not really care. And some days laugh it off and congratulate a person on the other end and be like, yeah, it's terrible for me today. Haha. Other days I'm wanting to smash my racket to pieces. And I know that in that scenario, there's something somewhere in my life that isn't right. Unfortunately, that has become a bit of a canary in the coal mine for me, that I then know that I've got to go and optimize something. And I think, again, it comes back to that self-awareness thing that we talked about in the last episode. Like your ability to understand yourself so well is just so important there. And I think for every founder, getting that formula right is so important. If you do have a canary in the coal mine, that's awesome, because it can really kick you into gear. It certainly does me, that I know that I need to become a better version of myself in those scenarios. The other just two things to pull out really quickly: the duality of knowing that you're going to succeed, but also having a plan for if it is all about to fail. I find this fascinating and really difficult as well. And I'm actually really good at what's the plan when all goes terribly. I actually have that relatively locked down. Like, I am aware of that at all times. I'm actually less good at planning for, like, what if this all goes incredibly well? And actually then there's some opportunities that I end up not taking because I'm actually not, obsessed with, like, or not obsessed, that's the wrong word, but like, belligerently thinking that this is definitely going to succeed. And therefore, when it does, and when these clients do come in, and when we do launch this new thing, like, this is what's going to, I'm actually less good at that top end, which I think is interesting. But the final one that I'll just pull out there that I think is wonderful is minimizing regret in decisions and decision making when it comes across your desk. Again, you mentioned it, but I find it much easier in those scenarios when I do have those difficult decisions to revert to a values-based framework. What are our values as a company? What are my values as an individual? And I'm going to make the decision based on that. And you're absolutely right when you say that often means that you do the less easy thing. Whether that is then having a difficult conversation, whether that is making a very difficult decision, or doing something that ends up being far more work or takes far more time or is so much more cognitive load. It's funny though, because once you have then done it, it's something to be proud of, rather than something that you did through efficiency, or then you need to make excuses to yourself. And we're back to the conversation of who is the I when I talk about yourself there. But anyway, more on that in the previous episode. But yeah, I think they're wonderful tips, Charlie, and thank you so much for sharing them. It's been a pleasure having you on this and the previous episode, so thank you.
You're welcome. Hopefully someone finds them useful.